once saw an action film where the characters were trying to break into an art museum to steal some really expensive art, and there was an alarm system that was made up of laser lights in a crisscrossing pattern throughout the entire lobby area, so that anyone who broke in would, if they walked past it, they would trip through these lines of the lasers, and they would set the alarm off. And so the villains in this film had some kind of special powder which they threw up into the air, and as it came down for a short period of time, they could see the lines, and they could walk through and over and around to do what they were up to. There are invisible lines that are between us. We can't always see them, certainly not with our eyes, but we can see them with the eyes of our heart. Often I notice them when I'm attending a memorial service or a funeral. Something about the emotional intensity and the relationships and the specter of death that makes the lines of connection become recognizable. They're apparent now between us, at least from this angle, I can see them. Having come from our different homes, on different directions and different roads, in our own moods, with our own mindsets, we've come. But after singing together, after breathing together, after connecting with our children and with children from the wider community, after saying the names of those who we love, those who have died, who we hold in our hearts, and those who we're thinking about on this day, the ties of love that unite us come into view in a certain way if we allow ourselves to open our hearts to see them. Now, we could think of the service as a kind of powder that we toss up into the air that makes these ties visible for some short period of time as we're gathered. And sometimes, as I said in the children's message, these ties can get broken. Some things that happen, that get said or that get done can sever or fray these threads that bind us to one another. Things like hatred and jealousy and deceit can sever the connections or make them at least invisible and hard to see. But we really can't disconnect from one another on a fundamental level. In a book called Going to Pieces Without Falling Apart, I read the story from the Abenaki Indians. It's about a curious warrior, an ancestor from mythical times, who was something of a mischievous trickster, who set out one day to stop the wind. He'd been trying to paddle his canoe across the river, but the wind kept blowing him back, making it impossible for him to get to the other side, and so he goes after the wind, determined to find its source. So he heads into it, hiking over stretches of land. It's a long search, but he finds it high up in a mountain in the Adirondacks, in the form of an old eagle, which he calls Grandfather. He tricks Grandfather into falling into a crevice between two mountains, and thereby takes all movement out of the world. Soon the weather gets hot, the ponds dry up and fill with scum, the fish and the animals die, and the people are miserable. For the Abenaki people, the stories about how impossible it is to eliminate any one aspect of life or the world, no matter how angry or unhappy it makes us. And just as the wind is part of creation, so are all the things that anger us and make us sad, like the wind. Our emotions, even the ones we don't like, we can't just eliminate them by avoidance or denial. And yet, with attention, they can turn into points of connection. Now, if you have a string with you still, as you're listening, I invite you to tie another knot as a reminder that even the difficult emotions that we have are potential points of connection between us and other people. In his book, Tattoos on the Heart, Gregory Boyle, a Jesuit priest, writes about the human tragedies that play out in the worst gang violence-ridden neighborhoods in Los Angeles. He describes in one of the stories a woman named Soledad, a mother of 4. She's very proud when her oldest son gets his diploma and he went into the Marines. He comes home for a visit. He goes out to pick up some fast food. She hears shots on the streets near their home, and her son Ronnie dies in her arms right outside of her door. Soon after, her next to oldest son, Angel, pulls off something that few in their neighborhood does. He graduates from high school. He helps Soledad through the hell that she's living through. 6 months after Ronnie's death, he pleads with her to put on some clothes with color, do her hair, and be a mom to her 3 remaining children. That afternoon, while sitting eating a sandwich on the front porch, Angel is shot up and killed by kids from a rival gang. Boyle writes, he found Soledad later that day sobbing in a huge bath towel. Into a huge bath towel. He writes, the few of us there found our arms too short to wrap around this kind of pain. So Soledad is locked in the anguish of separation. Boyle spends a lot of time with her over the next few years. She's there every time with her anguish and her brokenness. At one meeting, he asked her how she's doing, and she said, you know, every day I love the 2 kids I have, and I hurt for the 2 who are gone. And then crying, she admits, the hurt wins. Every day I struggle, but the hurt wins. And then when she's in the emergency room for some chest pains several months later, a kid with multiple gunshot wounds is rushed in on a gurney to the spot next to her. At first, the curtain isn't drawn between them, and she witnesses him fighting for his life, and she recognizes him. He's from the rival gang that killed her sons. She knew that her friends might say, pray for him to die, but that's not what happened. As she hears the doctor yelling, we're losing him, something in her cracks open. She says, I began to cry more than I've ever cried before and started to pray the hardest I've ever prayed. Please, please, don't let him die. I don't want his mom to go through what I have. And he survived, as did she, as did her capacity for loving. The love in her got ripped open by the grief, and in time became unimaginably vast, reminding us that anything that happens to us can be part of what wakes us up. We can trust that if we know how to be in relationship with our brokenness, if we know how to be in relationship with our suffering, it can be a doorway into our aliveness. The Buddha said, may whatever arises serve the awakening of love and kindness. May whatever arises serve the awakening of love and kindness. One of the core principles of Unitarian Universalism is that everything is interconnected in a web of all existence and all life. Even our grief, even the wind in our face. So I invite you now to tie another knot in that string to symbolize that you're connected even to your enemies or those who are perceived enemies, even those who have hurt you. You're still connected. The other day, I was driving and a man cut me off in his car, and after he zoomed past me, I noticed that he was delivering pizzas. At first I was angry, and so in my mind, I started putting him down. Because he's delivering pizzas, somehow that made me feel superior to him. Who's this guy delivering pizzas? Who does he think he is? He's cutting me off. Does he know who I am? Then I caught myself, right? And I started thinking, what do I know? Maybe he's got a wonderful home life. Maybe he's an immigrant who's perhaps come from another country and he's working his way through school. As far as I know, he could be a musical virtuoso. He goes home every night, he plays his cello. He's got great friends, great hobbies, a rich life. Pretty soon I start comparing myself to him unfavorably. Who am I? This great guy. It's uncanny how many ways we have to separate ourselves from other people. We can feel superior to them. We can feel less than them. But all these ways cut us off from seeing one another and even seeing ourselves. The comparing ourselves, that's particularly a harmful pastime. If you're one of the people like me who sometimes gets caught in the comparison thing, sometimes maybe comparing your marriage to other people's marriages, comparing your home or your clothes or your looks or your children or your intelligence, tie another knot in that string as a commitment to check yourself when you start comparing. And don't allow that kind of separation to occur. Use it as an opportunity to become closer, to be even more connected. If you think about it, for 9 months, we were literally connected by an umbilical cord to our mothers. And then we were born and it cut the cord, and yet we stay very connected as small children to the adults in our lives and all the people around us. No matter what happens, we as young children feel that sense of connection. And then as we grow up, we begin to individuate. We start to see ourselves as separate beings with separate needs and desires and opinions. Individualization is an important step in our own psychological development. Yet, once we achieve it, we need to learn again that we are still truly all connected. So much of learning to love and learning to live is about remembering this dual reality that we are both individuals and always connected. Our society, though, praises so much independence. The ways that we each stand out, the ways that we make our mark, the ways that we tread our own path. But in doing so, we can so easily and often lose touch with the ways that we are connected to one another and all of existence. We develop prejudices, we develop comparisons and animosities and other ways that separate us or make us feel separated, the delusion and the illusion of separateness. It's why I often say that we're here in this world to learn how to love. That that's the real purpose, in a way, of this life. We're learning how to embrace our connections that are between us and within us. But it's hard, especially in divisive times like we're living in so many ways that our societies and communities have become segmented by the news media, by politics, and by so many other things, slogans. And they don't teach us in school how to love, how to stay connected. But that is a core purpose of the church, to help us learn how to love and be loved. So if you've been following along this morning, then you have a string that has up to 5 knots tied into it. The first, from the children's story, representing our understanding and commitment to reconnecting the ties between us and those we love and care about when something gets broken because of unkind words or unkind interactions or distrust. The second, from our introduction to the children's choir anthem, representing our commitment to doing our part for the healing of the human family from prejudice and inequality. The third, a recognition of our interconnectedness with all life and all of our emotions after hearing the Abenaki story of trying to stop the wind, knowing we can't cut ourselves off no matter how hard we try. We can only live in a delusion that we're separate. And fourth, acknowledging a commitment and a desire not to cut ourselves off from our perceived enemies or those that have hurt us, like the woman Soledad, who lost 2 of her sons to gang violence, but then chose to pray for a member of the rival gang who killed her sons. And fifth, a commitment to stop trying to compare ourselves and our lives to other people's because of the ways that just separates us and leaves us feeling less than and alienated and cut off. So I invite you to keep this string, at least through the month of February, as we keep digging deeper into this theme of brokenness that we have. You might even tie it around your wrist or an ankle, or hang it on the mirror so you can see it in the morning when you wake up, as an inspiration to keep choosing love, no matter what. With all the division in our national life and in our personal lives, there are always threads that connect us to all of existence. Let us remember those threads. Let us hold love dear. May the circle be unbroken.
You're visiting with us online today. We love connecting with people all across the country and around the world, sharing our powerful message of love beyond belief.
There's something new happening here. You can now join All Souls as a virtual member. Our virtual membership is designed for friends who live outside of Tulsa, Oklahoma, and who want to engage with All Souls in a meaningful way.
You can be part of an expanding family, a global family really, wherever you are. If you live in Oklahoma,
Ohio,
or Orange County, California,
Canada,
or Cameroon. By becoming a virtual member, you'll be able to deepen your connections with members and friends here in Tulsa and with members wherever you are.
Each week, you'll receive special All Souls content tailored for you, our virtual members. Virtual members have access to pastoral care, to personal prayers, and also receive invitations to exclusive web events.
You can learn more, and if you're ready, you can become a virtual member today by visiting allsoulschurch.org/virtual membership.
We're grateful our ministries are having a positive impact on your life, and we want to share the good news of love beyond belief with more and more people. So no matter what, we need your support to keep this ministry growing and thriving, so please consider making a gift today. You can do so by texting
LOVEBB for Love Beyond Belief to 73256, or simply visit our website. You are a blessing in our lives. May you be blessed
and be a blessing.